Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Gemini for August 2017. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my blog, and also if you would love to learn astrology for your own personal development or as part or all of a professional offering, maybe you will love to take my astrology apprenticeship program. If you'd love to be a coach for your profession and bring your business online, maybe you'll love that course that I'm teaching as well. So check them out. What's going on in the month of August? We have powerful eclipses that are coming to make major changes, and I promised last month that this month I would focus on the fields of experience that are going to be highlighted for you, as well as the general implications of the eclipses and some other transits. I want to talk about where for each of the Gemini placements the lunar and solar eclipses are hitting. So to put these eclipses again in perspective, when you have an eclipse cycle, you've had that eclipse cycle at different intervals in time. So for instance, this Leo Aquarius eclipse cycle that we're having now, the last time we had this cycle was between 2008 and 2009. So you can look back into your life at that time and see what changes occurred, what areas of life were affected. And that's likely to be the areas of life that will be affected now. I had some questions about the market collapse, and is this eclipse cycle going to cause another market collapse of the type that we've experienced? I don't think so. I think that although there are definitely themes that were brought up at that time by the eclipse cycle that are going to continue to be ongoing, will be ongoing and presented more in our faces at this time, that the predominant market crash energy was brought by Pluto moving into Capricorn, which was a very big event. And so I don't think that energy is going to be duplicated at that time, because Pluto has been moving through Capricorn for quite a while, and the energies are being navigated differently. So besides normal minor market corrections and in general major restructuring of financial markets that is ongoing, I'm not saying that that's going to happen again now. But the story of restructuring within organizations and people asking questions about societal norms and whether they should be following those societal norms, those are definitely going to be coming up. And asking the question, how can someone live with their own passion more and follow their own direction instead of what the mainstream tells you to do? That's definitely going to be a theme. So a lot of people are going to be jumping from the mainstream into tributaries, moving alongside of the mainstream, or just creating their own way. So what could this look like specifically for Gemini energy? Let's talk about the lunar eclipse energy that's occurring on August 7th. When we have an eclipse on the 7th, that's not the only day that we feel these energies. We're feeling them, first of all, on an ongoing basis from 2017, 2018, well into 2019. This cycle is at play, so these changes are happening during all this time. We also feel a heightened increase in experience of the eclipse manifestations 4 to 6 weeks before and after the actual eclipse. So in June, we very likely could start to see the restructuring going on from the eclipses that are coming in August. So the lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Aquarius is going to occur in different places depending on your Gemini placement. If you have an early Gemini placement, which means you're the first 10 days of the sign, or if you're watching for your rising sign, 0 to 9 degrees, that's early. Then middle degrees have the second 10 days of the sign, or 10 to 19 degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. And then the last 10 days of the sign, that's a late degree placement, and it's 20 to 29 degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. So the lunar eclipse is going to occur predominantly in the 9th house for the early degree placements. It could also have some effects in the 10th house because it's close there. So let's talk about that first. So early degree placements could have an ending, a closure, a drama, something very notable as it relates to their work, their career, how they're putting themselves out in the world, how they are an authority figure or becoming an authority figure, or their authority figure experience with other people, including their fathers and their relationship with father. Something coming up there to be looked at, something coming into the light, something changing, and possibly something just ending. Sometimes lunar eclipses just very simply take something away. So some Geminis are going to have a job end through them quitting, or through them being fired or in some other way being taken out of their position. But don't worry about this. If this comes and it's not welcome, the law of the universe that energy is not created nor destroyed, it simply changes form, is very evident, very, very evidently at play at this time. And we see when there's a closing with something, that there's a great opening with something else. So the energy will be replaced, and you'll find over time that these are trajectory changes. Sometimes we're going off track and we need this nudge from the universe to get set in a different way. Okay, so the early degree placements could have this in the 10th house, but many of the early degree placements are going to have this eclipse in the 9th house, and much of the middle degree placement, many of the middle degree placements are also going to have that there, and the late degree placements as well. So the predominant Gemini experience for the lunar eclipse is going to be in the 9th house. And the 9th house has to do with teaching, learning, educating in general, publishing, speaking, spiritual studies, religious studies, involvement with churches, etc. It has to do with international business, international travel and relations, different countries, different cultures, different languages. And it also has to do with your viewpoint on the world, like how you see things as a bigger picture. So many people are going to have an end to how they saw things, how they did things. Some people will stop going to the church they went to. Some people will stop resonating with a spiritual principle that they had been working with. Some people will stop teaching, will end a teaching position, or will finish school. Maybe the eclipse could just be ending out a school program for them, and then they're ready to move on to the next step. So sometimes it brings a test of faith. Very often when there's a lunar eclipse in the 9th house, it brings this test of your beliefs. Some people experience that as a dark night of the soul, where the things that you thought to be true now are being challenged somehow, and it tests your faith. But all of these faith tests tend to make our whole experience stronger and more fulfilling. But there's very likely going to be a test, where something comes up and you have to question everything. But I have heard people say, and I really do believe, that whatever you're teaching, whatever you're learning, whatever you're studying, however you're seeing things, it's a good spiritual practice to be able to throw all of that out, and just see life without that whole thing. And so maybe this is just expanding your viewpoint through testing your capacity to be able to put certain things aside that were your everything way of seeing things. So the solar eclipse energy is going to be opening up new energy predominantly in the 3rd house. The most middle and all late degree placements are going to experience that opening in the 3rd house. Some middle and all early degree placements are going to have that energy, the new energy, in the 4th house. So what does that look like? 4th house energy is home and family. New moon and solar eclipse energy is opening new windows of experience. On August 21st, we have the 2nd new moon in Leo. So it's very powerful. And then it's a solar eclipse on top of that. And it's making beautiful aspects, 2 beautiful aspects as well, to outer planets, which are bringing just extra energy of happy surprises and stability at the same time. So many people will actually move to a new home, or a new person will come into their home, or they'll find they're pregnant and they have a new person coming in because of that, or they have a new family member because one of their siblings gets married, or they have someone move into their house that becomes like their family wasn't part of their family. There's a new energy in home and family. Many people will buy a 2nd house, and now they have 2 houses or multiple places that they live, or do some other real estate venture. It's a new opening of new energy in real estate, home, family. There also can be psychological breakthroughs as it relates to childhood issues, because the 4th house has to do with our childhood psychology and how it affects us in adulthood. So breakthroughs, major breakthroughs can occur with these energies as well. So the rest of you who aren't the early degree Gemini placements are going to have a very strong chance of new opening in this 3rd house. So there could be new projects, new opportunities with siblings, with relatives that aren't your parents or kids, although parents and kids could have new openings coming from that 4th house energy. But the third house more has to do with the other relatives. A new project there, a new awareness, a new awakening, a new dynamic. The third house also has to do with transportation and communication and the devices and modes that we use for these things. So all communication devices, phones, computers, laptops, everything. And all methods of transportation, boats, planes, cars, bikes, roller skates, scooters, whatever you got. That's all the third house. So you could be getting some new method of communication or transportation. If you're going to do this purposely, I don't necessarily recommend doing this in August because Mercury is going to be in retrograde and it's not the best time to buy something new unless it's like a segue to something else. But even still, the energy isn't very clear at that time. You know, even with these other new opportunities coming in, it's like information will still be coming in well into September. So if you can wait to make an actual decision, like do your research for your devices, do your research for your transportation purchases, and then at the end of September, like September 20th and after, make your purchases, then you'll still be well within this opening for the new moon energies, but you won't have that cloud of the Mercury retrograde interfering with and testing the weak links. There's another important thing that I want to talk about as it relates to solar eclipses in the third house, and it has to do with semantics. How words have an effect on the nervous system, how they affect the nervous system, you know, words that we use. We have a massive amount of violence woven into language. And we don't realize it because this is how we speak, this is how we communicate. But the dynamics that people have from a communication perspective, even very conscious people, have woven into how they say things and the words that we use. There's a violence in it, you know, and of course, as the language is, so the experience is. So an awareness of semantics and how we say things to people is, and ourselves, you know, is really a big possible awareness and breakthrough that can come in at this time. If you have a relationship that's struggling, then there's a principle that you can employ to try to help this. Every time there's an interaction where maybe there's some criticism within the relationship or some negative energy, if after you cool off, you know, if you could say 3 nice things about the person, and maybe they want to reciprocate, that would be great, but at least for your own spiritual work, to say 3 things you appreciate about the person, you know, like genuinely that you feel is wonderful about them, that you love. Of course, if you can't find 3 things like that, then that could mean some deep inner work on your part to be able to see things in a more positive way, or maybe you're just with a person or a situation that's not workable for you. But this practice of feeding the positivity to balance out the criticism, and to foster deep communication, bonding, is a really great opportunity for this solar eclipse. So I wanted to mention that. So those are the things that are most on my mind for Gemini placements this month. Now I want to talk about how the eclipses look from the perspective of the Leo Aquarius polarity. I also want to talk about other transits that you will no doubt be feeling. So the eclipses definitely dominate the astrological scene for August for all signs, but there are other aspects that I want to talk about that will affect you as well, and this will affect all signs. Right from the beginning, we've got Jupiter in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. This is the 3rd time that this has happened. The first time was November 24th of 2016. The second pass was March 30th of 2017. And here on August 4th, we have the final chapter. So this has been an ongoing saga having to do with the challenges of connecting with people in order to bring about something into the world. Jupiter in Libra has to do with relationships. Pluto in Capricorn has to do with business and things in the outer view, the public eye. And a square is a conflicted angle. So that means there's something to push through in order to get to the outcome. So the impetus lies in the aspect and also the blocks, you know, so that's what brings the frustration, is that there's this pressure to join together and get something out into the world, but then the blocks and the challenges are also wrapped up in the transit. So there should be some resolution, some final conclusion here. One of the pieces is going to have to do with competition. You know, whenever we subscribe to the third dimensional belief in competition, there always creates this hamster wheel angst that you never really get out of. But one of my favorite teachers, Florence Scovel Shinn, always says, or said, as I read her work, she's passed now a long time ago, there's no competition on the spiritual planes. And that's true. Infinite Spirit has a purpose for us that only we can fill. And you can take marketing data into consideration, you know, you can take third dimensional realities into consideration. But ultimately, what you do in this world has to do with you and Infinite Spirit and your purpose. So the more you can ease into that higher vibrational view of this, whatever you're merging together to do to bring out into the world, you're going to have a much better experience and much better outcomes. So even though I give you the dates of these transits, remember that you can always have the possibility to feel the energies in a manifestation before or after that date. Okay, so don't hang your hat too heavily on the dates that I give you. So, also important to note that I am giving you information about specific transits, as I always do, but you can get a more detailed write-up of the general transits that affect everyone when you sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. I send out a month early a written version of the summary of the energy of the month ahead, along with some highlights. If you have signed up for my newsletter already and you're not getting it, I send it out every month early, like clockwork, usually a month early. So if you're not getting it, it's probably going into social promotions, events folder or something like that. So check in there, spam, check in there and move it back into your inbox so that you can get them in a timely basis. Okay, so we talked about the eclipses at length as far as the individual effects for the signs, but we do have general effects for the eclipses as well. The first one is on August 7th. It's a full moon lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Aquarius. We're moving along this continuum that started at the beginning of 2017 that has to do with a reshuffling of energy in the arenas of large organizations, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, teams, groups, friendships, circles, you know, whatever kind of circles you find yourself in. That's all Aquarius. So some sort of reshuffling of energy. Some people will be focusing more in those realms, and some people will be focusing more on their own individual desires against the societal norms, which we'll talk about when we get over to the solar eclipse for later in the month. But this lunar eclipse is coming packing a lot of punch because the event also opposes Mars, which increases the likelihood of some sort of conflicted ending or a conflicted completion. Full moon eclipses tend to bring lots of drama, lots of emotion, and some sort of culmination, you know, an ending or something coming to fruition. But with that aspect with Mars, it could be a conflicted ending. There's also a simultaneous nice aspect with Saturn that could bring very positive and strong foundation for present and future security. And there's an additional trine with Jupiter. Anything having to do with a wonderful aspect with Jupiter always is going to bring more enthusiasm, more hope, more faith, and expanded outcomes. So we've got some sweet aspects on the 10th and 11th and 12th. Then on the 12th and 13th, depending on which time zone you're in, Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that will be at 11 degrees of Virgo. Mercury goes retrograde 3 or 4 times a year. So we really spend half of our lives in one part of the retrograde transit, either the shadow period that occurs before or the shadow period that occurs after or the actual retrograde. You can look at my video called Mercury Retrograde if you do a search for Annie Botticelli, Mercury Retrograde. I talk about the do's and don'ts and the understandings that it's important to carry. But basically, a lot of pressure is put on weak links that already exist with communication devices, mobility, transportation devices. So any weak links that are there are going to be turned up, you know, so old things that were swept under the rug as far as communication often just blow right out to be dealt with. And often things, people, ideas from the past roll in now for reconsideration. It's not always the best time to make the long-term decision if you can help it. So even though these eclipses and retrograde are going to bring some things right into the forefront, if you can wait until later into September, like at least mid to end September to really commit to a longer term situation, that would be better because you're not going to have all the information. Okay, so we've got a nice aspect with the Sun and Saturn on August 13th that where your desires receive enthusiastic support. The 15th, we've got, and actually there's another aspect with Venus on the 24th. So there are two challenging aspects with Venus this month, the 15th and the 24th, that are going to bring, some tension, either with self-esteem, aesthetics, appearance, romance, your relationships in general of any kind, or money. So there's pressure put on Venus this month, and you'll see that come up in little or big ways. Then we have a nice aspect on August 20th with the Sun trining Uranus. So sometimes sudden insights and exhilarating awarenesses or experiences could come in with that. On the 21st, we've got this very powerful new moon solar eclipse at almost 29 degrees of Leo. So this is the second new moon in Leo that we have, which adds a lot of power. Also, new moon solar eclipses are like new openings in triplicate, just as full moons are closings, endings, drama, conclusions, 3 times as powerful as a regular full moon. The new moon eclipses have the opening energies and the new energies 3 times that of a regular new moon. And this is a beautiful new moon. We've got a beautiful aspect with Uranus, which brings, more surprises, happy surprises. Then we have a beautiful aspect with Saturn, which brings, again, this long-term stable factor, which seems to be a theme this month, like certain things starting to click in for future security. And so when you have a solar eclipse, it's an opening. And when you have a solar eclipse in Leo, it has to do with openings in creativity. So anything having to do with children. But for some people, their creative projects are their children. So whether you're conceiving a child or conceiving a creative idea, that process of conception to pregnancy to birth to child or project rearing is all dominated by Leo. So there's going to be lots of new openings there. And for people who already have children, new experiences and, dimensions of parenting. There's also energy associated with athleticism, acting, modeling, directing, fun hobbies, true love. Many people are going to enter new dimensions of romance with this aspect, which is really exciting. So we've got that on the 21st, and on the 22nd, we have Mars in Leo trining Saturn and Sag. And again, this is a nice boost where action and outcomes blend beautifully. We've got a nice aspect on August 23rd to the 24th with Venus and Chiron, which shows that when we do emotional inner work, in those places where we're wounded, it brings positive gains. On the 24th, so simultaneously with this nice aspect with Chiron, we have a square with Uranus. I alluded to this earlier when I talked about the difficult aspect with Venus on the 15th. When Venus squares Uranus, the bringer of change in a feisty expression in Aries, makes an uncomfortable angle to love, money, and aesthetics. So there's many ways that can look, So definitely having the Venus in Cancer is going to promise emotional jostling from this unpredictable Uranus energy. August 25th, Saturn goes direct at 21 degrees of Sag. This officially ends the break that we've had as Saturn was in retrograde. Saturn is a chop buster. That's what I always call Saturn. Saturn wants discipline. It's a taskmaster, and it wants organization, and it wants hard work. And that type of energy doesn't blend well with Sagittarius, the sign that it's in, because Sag is all about free flowing and, not being consistent, and all the things that we love about Sagittarius don't mix well with the energy of Saturn. So we've had a break from Saturn kind of forcing us to take these big Sag ideals and dreams and do the hard work, consistent work for bringing those dreams down into the third dimension. We've had a little break from that, but now the break is over. So for the rest of the year, we're going to have to get our nose back to the grindstone and take the daily steps to bringing the dreams into fruition. So, when Saturn moves through Sag, it's also a serious faith tester, so we've got the rest of the year for Saturn to sort of weigh heavy on faith, but the more you can stay connected to faith throughout this Saturn transit, the better it will be. And then we end off with a nice aspect with the Sun and Mercury, but that can also mean some powerful criticism, you know, the same aspects that can be something positive, like some bright news, you know, when the Sun and Mercury join together, they enhance each other's qualities. There could be some powerful news that comes in. But Virgo is also really critical, so there could be some harsh criticism that comes in too. So just keep your head up with that. So if you would love to have astrology, to learn astrology in a visceral way, a way that helps you to blend more naturally with the planetary rhythms, then maybe you'll love to take my astrology apprenticeship program. You can see more about it on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Click on work with me. Whether you want to use astrology for your own personal developments or to help your friends and family and yourself to understand karmic patterns, understand what your highest expression is in this lifetime and how you overcome the karmic patterns to step into that, even if you want to do it professionally, then check out my astrology apprenticeship program. If you'd like to be a coach, a wellness coach, a business coach, a spiritual coach of any kind, helping people to reach their goals, then maybe you will love my coach course, which is also enrolling. And that's also combined with my online business course so that you can help create a presence online and develop your coaching business for an online basis. So check that out, anniehelpsyou.com. Also check out my husband B.R. Newman's new tarot reports for each sign. You can look him up, B.R. Newman, Neumann. IamHelios.com is his website. So you can see what he says about your sign as far as the tarot report, and that supplements what I've just shared with you. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.